Welcome to another Lazy Shell tutorial video. Today's lesson is the Monsters Editor. This is a fun one. This is where you can really give the combat aspect of your ROM hack some personality. To start, choose a monster from the drop-down menu. Or if you know their index number, you can enter it to the right. To the right of that, you can edit the monster's name. This first section down below, you can edit their vital stats, HP, FP, attack, and so on. Down below that, you can choose what effects you want to give them immunity to, if any. Below that, you can give them immunities or weaknesses to different elements. Under Rewards, you can choose how much experience the enemy gives. Note that actual experience gained is the amount entered here divided by how many party members took part in the battle, meaning if you have a full team of 3 allies in a fight, the experience gained is this number divided by 3. Use this box to change the number of coins you get from defeating the monster. And down here you can change the item they potentially drop with either a 5% or 25% chance. If both of these boxes have the same item, it's a 100% chance to drop. This is how you always get flower tabs and such from boss fights. Last, this determines what items the monster turns into if you use a Yoshi cookie on it. All monsters have something here, even if the chance for Yoshi to eat them is 0. Flower bonus gives the ally a chance to receive that bonus upon defeating the enemy. This is HP max, once again, and such. Remember that this only applies when you defeat an enemy using physical attacks. Monsters defeated by a special or item don't give any bonus flowers. Other properties have specific things. Morph success determines how often items that transform the monster into something else work. This is stuff like Yoshi cookies and the sheep attack. Your only choices are 0, 25, 75, and 100% success. Coin sprite changes if the monster shows a small coin, big coin, or no coin at all when they die. Entrance style controls how the monster comes into the battle, whether it's by jumping in, falling down from the ceiling, or already being there when the screen fades back in. Sprite behavior controls some of the finer points of how the monster moves. You can change it if it casts a circular shadow or not, if it reacts to being hit, and more. Most monsters look at particular sequences in the sprite editor for their animations. For example, sequence number 3 is typically a monster's normal attack animation. However, the Mario and Bowser that Belome creates don't do this. You need to give them these properties to make them function properly. Strike sound determines the sound the monster makes when using its normal physical attack. You can see a bunch of fun-sounding names here to choose from. Other sound is similar, but for less common attack sounds. These aren't used very often, so if you open up this drop-down, you can see the groups of enemies that use these different sounds. Elevate raises the monster off the ground a bit. 1 unit here translates to 16 pixels of height, up to a max of 3, which would be 48 pixels. For reference, 16 pixels is about the height of a Goomba. Down here we have special status. Invincible makes the enemy, well, invincible, meaning nothing will hurt them. Mortality protection guards against instant death attacks like Geno Whirl or Yoshi cookies. Disable auto death makes it so when a monster's HP reaches 0, they don't die. You'll see this used on most bosses. Bosses will often have a series of commands telling them to make that big coin shower appear, as well as to disable them as a target. This is the only way to make that big coin shower thing work. Last is Share Palette. This property is used only by Culex's crystals. Presumably, it makes it so their palettes function, but it's currently unknown what it actually does. Down at the bottom, you have the monster's psychopath message. You can edit this message just like you would edit battle messages and dialogues in the dialogue editor. Before we get into commands, let's jump over to the right. Along with this picture of the monster, you can change the position of the cursor that appears over the monster in battle. You can either manually enter coordinates in these boxes, or click and drag the cursor to be where you like. Now this middle section shows the monster's commands. The monster will start at the top of whatever's in this list and work their way down. Let's look at a better example, a more in-depth one. Here we have Ninja. If you take it line by line, you can probably understand what's happening. When you see if commands, you'll see the commands listed right after it are indented. Anything that is indented will only happen if that if condition is met. In this case, we start by storing a random number between 0 and 7 to this address. If the number is less than 6, we do these 3 commands. If not, we jump down to this command. Every enemy has a counter commands section, even if there's nothing in it. These tell the monster to respond a certain way if they are attacked. For the ninja, they have this disable auto death box checked, which means they don't die automatically when they hit 0 HP. Instead, they have separate counter commands to tell them to do one final attack and then die. Now on to commands themselves. These control the attacks and spells the monsters do in battle. You can choose a command to add by using this drop-down on the right, and the commands themselves will appear in that middle section like we talked about. Command Disable and Enable allows the monster to disable or bring back some of the player's commands, like what Bowyer does. These commands are all you need to do that. Everything else Bowyer does with the shooting an arrow at a block that turns off, that's pure showmanship. Do one attack will make the monster do the attack you choose from this dropdown. We talked about this during the attacks editor video, but most monster attacks aren't named because the name doesn't show up in battle. The first 15 or so attacks are generic enemy attacks. To see what an attack is, you'll have to experiment a bit or take a look at its animation script. Also, do note, some of these dummy attacks are actual attacks used by the game. They're usually meant for a specific monster to use. For example, Attack 98, which is a dummy attack, is the attack where terrapins wind up their fist and punch you. In addition to specifying the enemy attack, you can also have it do nothing by clicking this box. Do one of 3 attacks works similarly, but the monster will do one of these 3 attacks randomly, including doing nothing if you click that box. These 2 spell commands work exactly the same way, but with spells instead of attacks. This probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. Don't try to have monsters use ally spells. It won't work. Exit Battle does just that. It ends the battle right there. Let's skip down to the memory section. Just like with overworld gameplay, battles utilize memory to store information. Although the amount of memory you have to work with is much lower, I've found that you really don't need that much. You can do a lot with the memory that you have available here. The memory that you have to work with all starts with 7EE00, and you can use from 0 all the way up to F. There are commands to increment and decrement memory address, which means increase or decrease by 1, a command to clear whatever value is currently stored there, or to set and clear individual bits. Similarly, there are commands to look at the values stored in these memory addresses and do certain commands if those values are above or below certain amounts. Back up to these commands, let's talk about this if attack phase equals command. This utilizes memory 7EE006, which is reserved for turn count. It starts at 0 when the battle begins and goes up by 1 each turn. You can use this to make the monster do something depending on the turn. This command, memory equals random number, specifically uses memory 7EE005, which you can see in the Ninja's command list. Next, we have a series of if commands. I won't go through all of these, as you probably get the idea by now, but you can choose what happens if the monster is attacked by certain commands or items, if their HP is below a certain amount, if certain enemies or allies are alive or not affected by certain status effects, and more. Run Battle Dialog will display a battle dialog, which are found in the dialog's editor. Run Battle Event will run a battle event. Battle events are found in the Animations editor. Run Object Sequence will make the sprite do some particular animation. One you see used most commonly is Sequence 3, which is the death animation. Whether that's a normal enemy death or a boss death where they fade out depends on if you choose Fade Out Death under sprite behavior. Set items can be used to temporarily remove and give back your items during battle, like what Croco does during his second encounter. Target Call will bring a monster to the battle. You can use this to have a boss summon minions during a fight. Target Enable and Disable will do what they say. They make it so you can't target that monster. Target Set and Null Invincibility, again, is pretty self-explanatory. You can turn an enemy's invincible status on or off. Target Set will make the enemy attack that target with any of its moves until told to do otherwise. Target Remove will take that monster out of the battle completely. Wait one turn will make the monster wait until its next turn before moving on to the next command. Wait one turn, return all will make the enemy wait one turn and then go back to the top of their command list. The monster will do this anyway once it reaches the end of its command list. Last thing before we go is this button here at the top, this Hacking Tools button. This lets you adjust one or all of a monster's stats of your choosing by different percentages. If you wanted to create a hard mode type hack, you could use this to increase all enemies' stats by 10% or something like that. You could also use negative percentages if you wanted to decrease their stats. And that covers the Monsters editor. As always, if you find these videos helpful and you want to see more, please be sure to subscribe. If you have any questions, anything you want to go over that you need help with, feel free to reach out and I'll do what I can for you. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.